You'll know when you have a wild woman. She'll practice her craft without boundaries. She is truly autonomous. Her loyalty is only to the family she serves, a midwife who will not allow herself to be held back by a system she didn't create.
This podcast is for the birth keepers who want to grow and change. We are open to learning through self-reflection and supportive community. We are creating this space to explore without judgment. We are remembering we were
Born wild. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Born Wild podcast. We're your hosts, Sophia, and the other two ladies who don't want to be
Leah.
Thank you.
We never know what order that's supposed to go in. And Emma.
Yes, we are all feeling a little feisty today, a little emotionally drained, and trying to give you as much energy as we can. So let's just start with some check-ins. How was your week, Leah?
My week was good. I feel a little bit hectic in my inner world. I'm still getting ready to move. I'm very excited to move. Before I had kids, I was very nomadic. I moved a lot, different states and different apartments, and I kind of just enjoyed doing that. And so it's bringing back some of that old feeling, starting fresh. But just going through all my stuff and organizing and helping my kids organize their stuff. I have a lovely client who's due soon. I'm really excited about her birth. So just kind of holding that space and making sure I have my stuff all ready to do that. But yeah, my brain's really just sort of tied up and getting my ass in gear to move. What about you, my dear friend, Sophia?
I'm good.
Oh, wait, Emma, I want to hear from you first.
Okay, I'll wait.
Okay.
We're all a little pissy right now. So I'm gonna go with it.
What? You want to hear about me? Oh gosh. I honestly, you guys, I don't even have an update. I swear. The only the only thing that feels good today is that I'm not wearing pants right now. I'm on my cycle, and I have had a really rough couple of days with people from my past just walking back into my life wanting closure, and that's always fun. So yeah, I'm just having a pants-free day and top knot bun day, and I'm just here. So I made it.
You made it. Round of applause. I hiked my skirt up just because it's fishnet and it feels weird to sit on it. So I'm like half there with you. We've been talking throughout the week. I had a huge emotional week too. But I also had two beautiful births this week. The last one. Huh?
You had two births.
Two.
Yeah. Sorry, my brain's not functioning. I wasn't there, so therefore they don't count.
Yeah. I had two pretend births without Leah. Yeah, I just did some other midwives. And one, I think it was just last night. Was it the night before? Oh no, I think it was the night before. I can't remember. It was what I've now deemed, and this can go viral, this new phrase, but I like to call it the Mary Poppins birth because it's practically perfect in every way. Mm-hmm. Tagline. Yeah, so it was great. It was great. And the little girl, her daughter, who's about 5 years old, afterwards just kept she would have her hand on her mom's shoulder and she'd say, "I love you so much, Mommy. You did such a good job." And I was telling this story to someone earlier and I just started crying. I was like, oh my God, it's so sweet. It's so sweet. yeah, so that was beautiful. And then earlier in the week I had assisted another midwife. And that was, a first time mom, and her waters broke. Um on day 1. She ended up having her baby on day 3, and she had, like, as she described it, 3 half days of contractions, where it would come on, but then it would go away, and then it would come on, and then it would go away. And so it just, like, brought up conversation about the whole, how long do we wait with waters open? And so I know I had brought it up that that might be a fun topic to talk about today.
Mhm.
And yeah, maybe we could just start with sharing any experiences we have of where water's open and labor isn't quick to follow, and just like what our experiences have been. And then maybe we can dive into, what it all means for us as midwives and how we feel about it.
Yeah, for
Does that
sure.
work?
Yeah.
Okay. Emma, how about you? Have you had any experiences where water opens and labor's delayed, in quotes?
hmm Yeah, actually, just recently had an experience that was very interesting. It was, I think, it was a primip, and she was, I want to say, like 38, and 38 years old and 41 weeks, and her water broke, and she was in labor for like 3 days, and she eventually, we checked her, and she was like 8 centimeters, but she wasn't really having like synchronistic contractions. And she went to, we tried acupuncture and walking and sleeping and herbs. And it was just really fascinating. Like, she was just like sitting there joking with me, and like 8 centimeters. And just like, wow, this is wild. You really just never, every birth is different, and everything was fine. I mean, she eventually pushed her baby out, and baby was great, and it was a beautiful birth. But I know for certain that she would have probably had a C-section or had many interventions, and if she were in different care.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a couple stories like that, but that's the most recent one, but very interesting.
Mhm. What about you, Leah?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think, trying to think how it's changed over the years. I was thinking about my apprenticeship, and this is another thing that's interesting, is like community standard versus actual protocols, like what's actually within our scope, or what we quote unquote are allowed to do after somebody's bag has opened. But I remember the whole idea of 72 hours was what one midwife's deal was that labor had to start within 72 hours, which is pretty roomy I think for most midwives. And this is someone that's been practicing for over 30 years. And who isn't? I mean, she's definitely not like the most alternative midwife in the community. But then I worked with another midwife who was sort of like, if after 24 hours nothing's going on, then it probably won't. Like if it hasn't started by 24 hours, then, kind of pessimistically, like, you can do what you want, but it's, if it hasn't started, there's something going on. But I've had lots of times where, and it's usually like a leak, like we don't necessarily know if it's the waters, but then we do a test, like nitrazine or whatever, and it's positive. But I mean, I've gone like 5-6 days with people, and just monitoring and doing temp. And I had someone who chose not to do GBS testing, and I think it was 5 days that she didn't really have any contractions. I think we did castor oil, and that's what kicked her into labor. But yeah, getting more and more, and the fluid was clear. So there was that. But I don't know, it's like the idea of like giving up on the labor because the water bag's open.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, an infection. I don't know, Sophia, when you were apprenticing, did you have like guidelines about that, or what was your experience being taught?
When I was a doula, I worked in the hospital, and they always have that 24-hour rule. But other than that, the midwife who was my preceptor, well, the most vivid story that comes to mind is we had a mom, we were seeing her for a prenatal, and as she was leaving, she said, "Oh, by the way, I think my water broke 2 days ago." And we were like, "Oh, okay, tell us more." And she had declined GBS testing, so we didn't know that. And so this midwife reached out to an OB that she consults with. He's surprisingly really supportive of home birth. I've seen him practice in the hospital and I never would have guessed, but he is very supportive of home birth. And so he told her, as long as she doesn't have any signs of infection, then it doesn't really matter how long she goes. And we were like, okay. So that made the midwife feel better, continuing on. And so this mama woke up, I think, on the 6th day of her waters ruptured, and was like, okay, I'm over it. I'm tired of waiting for these contractions. And she gave herself 17 manual orgasms and went into labor. And by the time we got there, I think she was like 7 or 8 centimeters or something, her first baby. And so I always tell women that I'm like, if you need a number, it's 17 orgasms. Will bring contractions on. And people are like, how much time did she have on her hands? I was like, well, yeah, she was just over it. So that was great. And there was that, yeah, never any sign of infection or anything like that. So yeah, it just brings up the topic of, or the idea of, do you act now to avoid this potential infection that could come? Or do you just literally wait until there is actually infection, because it's not, clearly with our stories, it's not this guaranteed if you go past this certain date or, time frame, you're going to get an infection. And the idea of like, even if you did, that it's not like it's a death sentence. We have antibiotics and that's what they're there for.
Have you had the experience of somebody that ended up with an infection and was upset? Like felt like they wished that they had nudged labor more?
My only experience with that is while I was a student, we attended a birth. I'm trying to remember all the details now. She was GBS positive and she was planning on doing antibiotics. And I'm trying to remember the order of things. We like came over, we started the antibiotics because she was in labor. So it had nothing really to do with waters opening. And then as soon as her waters open, like my memory tells me like maybe within a half hour, everything changed. And like all her vitals were wacky, like her temperature was going up, her, blood pressure was, and like the baby's heart tones were in like 180s, like up higher. And we were doing all the things, that we knew to do. She had the IVs, so we were doing fluids and, just monitoring closely. And it didn't resolve. And so she ended up going to the hospital. It's kind of fuzzy in my head. It was so long ago and I was a student, so I don't have like the records, but she ended up having a C-section. And I don't remember if there was ever like a confirmed infection or anything. I don't remember that part of the story, but it was crazy how she was literally on antibiotics and it was so quickly after the waters opened that everything shifted. It could have been coincidental, but yeah, it was just interesting. But exactly what you're talking about, I've never had that situation. Yeah,
Maybe her water broke, like a hind leak or something, and the infection had already started. What's weird is the antibiotics,
right,
that wasn't helping.
But yeah, it was, and it was interesting because my preceptor at the time, she was kind of hesitant to do antibiotics in her practice because of the risk of like anaphylaxis or things like that. And she usually doesn't do it.
Mhm.
And she, lets families know that, I usually don't offer them. And she had recently met a naturopath who was like, "Oh, if you ever have somebody who wants that, I'm happy to come and administer it." So she was excited about that option. But then that didn't end up happening. And the mom who was in labor had asked her, they were like good friends or something like that. And she was like, "Oh, I would want antibiotics." And she was like, "Yeah, no problem. I'll totally do it for you." And so it wasn't a thing she did very often. And I remember afterwards, she's like, "See, it wasn't what I thought, but this is why I don't do that." But yeah, it was
Yeah,
interesting that like the one time she administered it, and then the mom ended up, not well.
yeah, yeah. I know I don't hardly ever do it in my practice, but when I worked at the birth center, we did, I mean, almost everybody that was GBS positive had antibiotics. It's just, the whole more interventions at the birth center thing. But
Mhm. And this
yeah,
Utah?
yeah, in Utah. I
Mhm.
mean, there was just in general, it was just more, I don't know, not mainstream, but people tended to want more of like what they would have at the hospital
Mhm.
there. So
Mhm.
in some ways it was good because I got more practice, but it wasn't things that I would necessarily do.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, I do remember when my preceptors had, like a book of information that she gave clients, and there was an article that was about antibiotic prophylaxis, like giving all women antibiotics when their bag is ruptured after. I think it's 18 hours in the hospital now. I mean, they want to start Pitocin after 18 hours for sure.
Mhm.
Even with like no GBS, no fever, nothing. It's like 18 hours, they just start Pit. Um, but antibiotics too, it's just like, what does that do to women's bodies and to babies? I always tell people when they ask about, okay, I have another story too that just drives me insane. But it's like there's a reason why our babies are born facing our buttholes, like supposed to, you know, it's like, welcome to the world. Here's where the most bacteria is.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
there's a
it's how
reason.
they get colonized. I mean, now we're learning
Exactly.
more and more how
Exactly.
important that is to be born, you know, through all that bacteria.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, when I used to do doula work, I would go to CPMC in the city, and it's moved now. It's like there's one on Van Ness, and I think that there's one somewhere else too, but it used to be on California. Um, and they did this thing, which was so unbelievably infuriating, where right when women were about to push, like birth, they would wash their legs, like the inside of their legs, with chlorhexidine wash, like right up to their, lady parts, like, even like the outer labia, like,
Oh,
like surgical prep chlorhexidine wash. And it was just like so gross.
Yes.
It was like, your baby, we have to like cleanse you so that your baby isn't, dirtied by you. It was, oh my God. I remember talking to another doula about it and just how like gross it was. But
Mm-hmm.
they were terrible. I don't know what it's like now, but I remember doing a birth too where there was a doctor she's pretty well known by midwives. She's retired now, but she was doing a vaginal exam, and she checked her pager, like looked away, looked at her pager, like made some comment about being busy, like with her hands still inside this woman. And it was horrible.
Oh
Anyway,
my God. That's awful.
hospital rent.
yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, anyway, protecting babies from their mother's bodies, because
Well, we do that, not we personally, but like as a culture, do that the entire pregnancy. Like
sure.
yeah, all the things we do prenatally for the most part are making sure that her body isn't betraying her baby, you know?
I don't think so.
I for sure feel that way.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, well, explain the way you feel, Sophia. How do you,
That you just like, couldn't possibly grow a healthy baby without us like checking your blood to make sure you're eating enough, and to look inside with ultrasound to make sure, you've grown a baby with all their parts. And, we have to make sure your baby's not too big or not too small. And, there's hardly any women left who have done it the right way, or good enough. Who was I just talking to about? Oh, I think I was interviewing someone, and it was like from one week to the next, it was like, oh, you have gestational diabetes. We're really worried about your baby being big. And then like the next week she had IUGR. And she was like, well, which one is it? Like, come on. Just the idea that it's always the woman's fault, that she just like, her body didn't do a good enough job. It's like attacking the baby. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's like, I just don't feel like that's prenatally how I feel like my care is.
Oh, I
mean,
didn't
maybe
say
it is
what my care is. I said as a society.
Oh, sure. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm
Right.
constantly
Well, not so
mothers. No.
Well, it's like we talked about before, like, babies. I don't know. I feel like, sure, part of our job is like to protect baby, not from mom, but just like their passage, But I don't know. I just feel like it's mom's job.
Well, no, I mean, you could even go into like, even the decisions she makes for her baby needs to be protected from those decisions, and I'm not talking about obviously how I practice or we practice, but just that, like, how could she make the best choice for her baby? Like, as doctors and providers, like, we need to be making sure that we're doing the best thing for this baby, regardless of how the mother feels and what she wants.
Right.
And so, unrelated to birth, I was just dealing with this today, where I'm scheduling something for my son, and he will need a COVID test before he can be admitted. And they were saying, instead of you coming all the way down here to do a COVID test, you can just find a place locally to do it. And I said, cool, that would be great. And, I'm a medical provider and I could just get a COVID test and test him. And he was like, yeah, that wouldn't be acceptable. It has to be like an outside, like that I would just like cheat or lie or like be sneaky. Like, I'm his mother. I could not be trusted to do that.
Wow.
Like, it makes me want to be like, fuck you, but then it's like, what he has, I need it from him, and I need to go through these hoops. So yeah, it's just the whole, like, her body, if we have to protect the baby from her, can just go so big, in all, like, what is it, Rogam? I mean, almost everything we list that has to do with a test or anything, it is protecting the baby from the mother, pretty much, in my opinion. And it just makes me angry.
Yeah, I mean, birth at the hospital is completely like that,
Yes.
But yeah, prenatally, I hadn't really thought of that. But yeah, no, it's for sure. Well, and that's like I've said about home birth, is that it's, I think it's safer for mom and baby, for low risk women and low risk babies. But especially for women, I mean, it's significantly safer for women at home, but it's not really talked about very much, and I've talked about saying that to people, and, and I'm not saying you should choose to be flippant with your baby's safety, but it is interesting to me that it's not something that is this major priority in the way we talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
What about your birth, Emma? When did your water break?
Oh, wow. I think my water broke when, that's so funny. Like, I remember every other detail. I think maybe when I was pushing, or no, actually she broke it. My midwife broke it to get things to move along. But I was almost 43 weeks and I had like a 37-hour labor. And I think at the end, it was just like, we need to be done. I think I needed to be done. But yeah, interesting.
So she opened the bag like during labor or like to start labor?
No, during labor. Yeah. Yeah, to just kind of get Dahlia down and out and speed it up because it was taking a really long time. And I was like losing energy. I was so tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
What about you, Leah? When did your waters open for your births?
For June, they broke my water. And I think I was like, when I went back, because I went in the first time and I was like a centimeter or two.
Mm-hmm.
I was sure I was ready to push her out. So they sent my ass home, and then I came back and I was like 8.5 or 9. And I probably was getting close to complete, but they broke it and it was like very dramatic. I was laying down and it was like the kind that like shoots across the room.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was born like, I only pushed for like 20 minutes. It was really fast.
Wow.
For a first baby. Yeah. And then Sienna, it broke and I was in the tub and I feel like I felt it open, but I may have just been like, someone told me it did. But you know, she was born like 10 seconds later. So it was kind of classic second baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, mine opened when I was sleeping with Ben. It was like 9 a.m, but it like got on my bed and then I went to the toilet and the rest came out there. And my husband started like maybe 10 or 15 minutes later. And then with Gracie, they probably opened in the cesarean because I was 8 centimeters and it had not ruptured yet.
Yeah. I always wanted to have that like movie moment where your water breaks. Then it's like, oh my gosh, this is, that I didn't have that, but that's cool that you got to do that.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to feel it because I was sleeping. I mean, I guess I must have felt it because I woke up. But have some women describe like feeling like a pop in their body.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be nice to feel.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about when they opened my bag with June. It felt like the ocean came out of my bag. Because they did it like during surge. Anyway, I remember getting out. So, Emma, have you had amniotic fluid all over you?
That was the next story. I was just going to say, oh my gosh. So when I was first starting out as a student, oh my gosh, I was like right in the splash zone. Like she was having a contraction on the toilet. And I'm like sitting there looking up at her like, this is great. My, like second home birth. Woo. And then she just pushes and it explodes, like water all over my face. It was before I knew to like bring an extra pair of clothes. And I'm just like sitting there like smiling, like, I'm going to step out of the room for a second. And just like dying in the kitchen, like, oh my God. Yeah, that was fun. I think that's kind of a rite of passage. Every student has to be in the splash zone.
When I had students, which mostly was at the birth center, I would watch them get closer and closer. And I was like, you gotta do it. It's like being baptized,
Yeah.
Just once,
Yeah.
Just one time.
No, it got in my mouth. It was salty. Like my eyes were like, yeah, it was, all everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
think my bra
ever happened to me. I definitely remember as like a doula at the hospital, a big break, like to the point where it's like puddles on the floor. And so it like being standing in it kind of thing. But I mean, I for sure have been covered in blood postpartum with like big bleeds, controllable bleeds, but like gushers. but I was assisting another midwife once, and the mom was laying on her back, and she was just like up close and personal, like right in her vagina, and her water exploded all over her face. And I remember thinking, that's what you get for having your face all up in her vagina. But yeah, it looked like she had just gotten out of the shower.
I was just thinking about, and she wouldn't mind us talking about it, but Arya's birth, when Bo was like right there and it was her bag of waters, and she had a lot of mech, like it was really thick mech. And I remember him saying like he kind of looked like the head, because it was dark and there was mech, and then the bag opened, and I'm pretty sure it got, I have to, like, from the shoulders down, I always get soaked by something, whether it's like fluid or blood or falling in the tub, which is why Sophia brings extra clothes to births for me.
Specifically.
Yeah. I've gotten a little bit better, but yeah, I feel like that was a big mess. But I remember Bo being like, for just a slight second, I thought it was the head and I thought it exploded.
Oh my God.
Like my brain
oh my gosh,
work correctly. I was like, that must have been upsetting for you.
Oh, how traumatic. I actually feel that way for even a few seconds.
Owen's head was like right behind, and then she came out quickly, but yeah.
Oh my God.
Definitely. Yeah, I get a lot of fluids on me. I'm not really sure.
Oh yeah.
I think maybe the reason I don't is because I'm usually like across the room recording. Like,
yeah, that could be it.
That might be why I'm just kind of not even really in the vicinity, for the most part. Yeah. And so I think that's why the only memories I have are when I was a doula, because I was usually like holding a leg or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was always like my feet that got wet. Yeah. Back to the topic of, waters being open too long and infection and all that. Have you ever had any clients who felt concerned enough where they didn't want to risk being home any longer than X amount of time and wanted to go in to get induced?
Yeah, I think it was more like they had just had it with things not getting started. Not very, I mean, maybe once or twice. Like I feel like it's happened, but I'm struggling to think of an example of it. I think it's more like it's been days and days and they're just like over it,
Yeah.
But I feel like castor oil is such a bummer. And I know a lot of midwives that are just like, I feel like I've reached out to especially older midwives, be like, for advice or for recommendations, and they're just like, castor oil, just give them castor oil, which I would think if the bag of waters was open, I'd sort of like even more hesitant. But I feel like usually people want to try something before they just go in. But yeah, I did have a birth the last year where it was, I don't know, 5 or 6 days, and we ended up transferring. She ended up with a C-section, totally unrelated. I think she had an infection, but her baby was super deep posterior, and we tried everything, and but it was a really good, like for me, it was really good educational wise, like to talk it out with them. And like each day, we talked several times a day, and they were taking her temperature, but like just really checking in and seeing like, are we still comfortable with this? Why are we still comfortable, or why aren't we uncomfortable more? And just like checking in with because I definitely get to a place with some things where I'm like, okay, am I doing this just to be like against the the mainstream, like, like, is this something that I'm going to make a point with, but it was like a good way to think it through.
Yeah, my views and my practice are, obviously I think it's the same for all of us is regardless, mama calls the shots. Um, but for the most part, if there's not an issue, why make there be an issue? Um, and that's kind of how this birth had unfolded, just, not worrying about it because she didn't have any signs of infection, so we just kept going. And it sounds like that's the stories that you two had. It's awesome.
And she was GBS unknown?
Positive, or sorry, negative.
Negative, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then, I mean, afterwards, postpartum, her baby, everything was great on baby. Like heart tones were good, resps were good, O2 was good, but the baby just had this. I'm trying to remember because both babies had a little something, but on this baby just had some like grunting. Like you could just tell she was working at breathing, even though all her vitals were great. She was still like not nursing and not really settling and just kind of like working. And so we just had conversations about it and talked about what it would look like if we went to the hospital for her potentially, and the things that we could do at home. We could just wait and give it time. I have seen that work, so I know that it's possible for a baby to resolve on their own with that. And what we ended up doing that worked was CPT, which I'm trying to remember what that stands for. Do you remember? Do you guys know? CPT.
No, when you texted that to me, I thought I was like, I have no idea what that is.
Huh?
You mean like percussing?
Yes, but I'm trying to remember what the acronym actually stands for.
Google.
Okay, you do that while I tell a story. So I basically like cupped my hand at first, and then I remembered, I could just use the infant mask because it's perfect. You can just like put it in your hand and use the infant mask because it's inflated instead of your hand. So I did a little of both, but we just percussed on the baby's back, and we did 2 rounds of that, gave her back to mama, and she just kept getting better each time. And then she was fine and quiet and nursed and slept, and it was great. But it did bring up stuff for us as midwives, them as the parents of, okay, like we do have to consider that the waters have been open for a while. We do have to consider that there's meconium, and how we easily could have run with those stories and assumed that because the baby was doing this and the waters had been open and like that something was wrong. But that was just a story we were coming up with, and it wasn't actually true. And so we just stayed home, and it was great. And she's doing great. Did you find it, Leah?
It just says just physical therapy.
Oh, I thought it was going to be a fancier word. That's great.
Just physical therapy is the term for a group of treatments designed to improve respiratory efficiency, promote expansion of the lungs, strengthen respiratory muscles, and eliminate secretions.
Yeah. And it was awesome because when we had this thing, I reached out to probably like 5 or 6 different midwives, you two being included, just to like explain the situation and brainstorm. And it was so cool. Everybody had so many different ideas, and we tried a bunch of different things. And this, maybe it was a combination of everything, but this seemed to be the one that she recovered with the quickest. And it was just such a neat feeling to feel like held in the community too, that everyone was rallying around this one family and this baby. And it was great because as soon as somebody was like, oh, percussion, I was like, oh my gosh, I did that for like a year for my son. Like, why didn't I think of that? But I'll never not think of it again because it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, I did it at the birth center in Utah. I would just lay babies like over my thigh and kind of downward, but I just used my hand. It was just like, I was surprised how much force you can use.
Yeah.
I don't remember of cases where babies are like that, and I've just had a stern conversation with them, and they get better.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember our physical, or whatever they're called, respiratory therapists. They told us that when you do it, to be sure your hand's not flat and make sure it's like slightly cupped.
Mhm.
And then they gave us a tool to take home to use. It was like for this specifically, but it looks just like an infant mask for resuscitation. And so I was like, oh, hey, this looks just like that tool. And so I used it and it was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was done on me when I was born.
Oh.
I had the quarter on my neck, and I had sticky shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, my dad describes it as like a bottle top, but maybe it was really the ambi bag and he just didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I was percussed.
Well, this was a good conversation. Thank you too for gathering with me today. And
Yeah, we're all grouchy, but we made it work.
right? Life happens, emotions happen. We're here for it all. Great.
Damn solar eclipse.
Yes, right.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking would be cool that we haven't really talked about a bunch is like, I would love to hear people's experiences with, how many days they've gone, with someone who's traumed, like bag open, if they had bad experiences, have they gone, how long and what are their feelings about it? And like they could email us or they could comment on the Instagram, but I would love to hear too, like other people's experience, especially in like other states, like unregulated states or just different licensure. Like I'm just always curious, like what people's standards are, community standards or whatever.
Yeah,
That's
or even different countries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether it was your own birth, you're like a mother and want to tell us your experience, or a midwife and what your experience in your practice has been. Let us know.
Yes, tell us.
All right. Well, bye, ladies. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we'll chat again next week.
All right.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks everybody for listening. You can find us at Born Wild Podcast on Instagram. For inquiries or feedback, you can email us at bornwildpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me, Emma Ray, on Instagram at Emma Ray, REA.
Sophia at sophiabirth.com. And me, Leah, at Bay Area Home Birth.
We would really appreciate it if you would rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps us reach more people. And as always,
Stay wild.